Welcome back to the Little Marketing Podcast, where we share practical real-life advice for Australian small businesses. So today I want to talk about a really important mind shift that small business owners can make towards their marketing, and that's the difference between viewing marketing as a cost versus viewing marketing as an investment. It's a conversation that we have all of the time with all different small business owners right across Australia. And interestingly enough, it's not normally about tactics or platforms or campaigns. It's more about the mindset. Because the way that you categorize marketing in your mind, so whether you view it as a cost that needs to have a return on investment immediately, or whether it's an investment that will build over time, changes your approach drastically. So it's understandable why so many small business owners see marketing as a cost. Obviously, you're spending money and you want to see a return on investment to justify it. You want to see your inquiries lift, sales go through the roof, and if you don't see that coming in, then you feel like you're just sending money out the door. But the reality is that very few things in business that are valuable actually deliver instant results. So for example, if you hired a really great new team member, you wouldn't expect them to start doubling your revenue in 1 week. Or if you're investing in new systems or training, you don't expect these to transform the business overnight either. You understand that there's a long-term benefit being built, and marketing is exactly the same. I think part of the reason is that we now live in a society that celebrates quick wins. So you see stories about overnight success, viral campaigns, and sudden spikes in revenue. And it can start to create a subtle expectation that if marketing is working, it should be working fast, and there's a hope for this magic pill that's going to magically transform your marketing and your business overnight. So short-term wins can definitely happen, but they're not a strategy, they're an exception. So if every small business had quick wins, then everybody would be wildly successful. But we know that small businesses have a high failure rate, particularly in the early years, and it's not because the business owners aren't hardworking, and that's because decisions are being made on immediate wins versus long-term outcomes. So when marketing is treated purely as a cost, it starts to become something that is constantly judged. Is it working yet? Should we be trying something different? Maybe we need to pivot, and that constant change is going to create inconsistency, which ultimately weakens your brand instead of strengthening it. So if you look at established, profitable brands around you, ones that have been around for years, none of them were built in 3 months, none of them were built in 6 months. Most weren't even built in a year, but they built gradually through consistency, a clear positioning, consistent action, and long-term thinking. So brand recognition isn't going to happen overnight, trust isn't going to happen overnight, and credibility doesn't happen overnight. Things are going to happen over time through constant exposure and consistent communication. Your audience sees you regularly, they hear your message, and they're going to start to associate you with a specific solution. And then over time, familiarity with your business grows, and that's going to be really powerful for your small business. So people trust what they recognize, and then they prefer what they trust. But this doesn't just come from one campaign, it comes from them seeing your business and your brand over and over consistently. So one of the biggest things is that when we see small business owners chasing quick wins, and as a result, their decision making becomes reactive and they're jumping from one tactic to another. They look at running social media for a few weeks and then they abandon it. They might look at some ads and then stop after a few days. They're changing their messaging constantly and they pivot every time there's a dip in the revenue. But what that does is prevent momentum from building, and marketing actually compounds. So every bit of information adds another layer. Every testimonial is going to strengthen your credibility. Every campaign can teach you something about your audience, and every interaction builds data and insight. And each of these things on their own might seem small, but all together, they are going to accumulate. So eventually you reach a point where there's more inquiries, referrals increase, sales conversations become easier, price resistance decreases. And when that happens, it can seem like a sudden takeoff. It's actually the result of consistent months or years of consistent investment. So a business that relies purely on sporadic sales spikes is fragile. A business that has consistent lead generation, strong brand awareness, and loyal customers is stable, and stable increases value. So if you ever wanted to sell your business or maybe take a step back from the day-to-day operations, or just to have a bit more flexibility in your life, the strong marketing is going to play a massive role in that. It builds assets, brand equity, brand awareness, reputation, systems, and relationships. And those are all tangible components of business valuation. But there's also an emotional component to this, which I think is really important to talk about as well. Running a small business is personal. So cash flow feels personal, sales feel personal, quiet periods feel personal. And when it starts to get a bit quiet, it's easy to panic. And that's often when marketing budgets get cut or strategies get changed. But it's actually the moment that you feel most tempted to pull back is when it's really important to stay consistent. Long-term marketing requires emotional discipline. It requires you to stay the course when results aren't immediate, and it also requires you to trust the process. So the most successful business owners aren't always the loudest or the most creative, they're often the most consistent. They commit to consistency, they commit to ongoing visibility, they don't turn things off when there's a bit of a quiet period. They review performance strategically and they're refining where necessary, but they're not abandoning completely. So when you start viewing marketing as an investment, your decision-making changes and you stop asking, what can this do for me right now? And you start asking yourself, what can this do for me? What is this building over time? And that mind shift alone is going to create a calmer and more rational strategy. And this is where it's going to tie back to your bigger goals. So what do you actually want from your business? Growth, stability, increased profit, lifestyle flexibility, financial security, or a sellable asset? Marketing should align with those long-term goals, not just month to month. So when you start approaching it that way, your decisions become more measured, your strategy becomes clearer, and ultimately marketing isn't about chasing those quick wins or those viral moments. It's about building trust and awareness in your market so that over time your business is going to become the obvious choice for your ideal customers and clients. So marketing is not just a cost to justify, but it's an investment in recognition, credibility, trust, stability, and long-term. And when you start treating it that way, everything changes, not overnight, but over time. So thank you for listening to today's episode. If you found it helpful, please share it with a fellow small business owner like yourself. If you want more information, you can visit our website, which is littlemarketing.com.au. You could also head to our socials or send us an email at ask@littlemarketing.com.au.
Please note that all the information provided on this podcast is general in nature and is not intended to be specific advice to your individual situation. Please be sure to engage a professional for a customized approach to your business and personal circumstances.